I think the innovation that is happening is the future of work will only get brighter. One example of that is if many of the things that humans today do that can be offloaded to agents, that means we get more time to apply thought, to apply creativity, to do things that we are uniquely wired for, right? So that creates an opportunity, right? That makes work that much more delightful, that much more what I want to go do versus what I need to go do, right? And I think the innovation is only accelerating. That's why that notion that we'll get more and more time to do creative work, more and more time to do thought work. So I think it's super bright. We'll do many more things at incredible speed and scale.
Hi, I'm Boaz, founder and CEO of Augmented AI Labs, and I'm excited that you're tuning into the Shift AI podcast, a show that explores what it takes to thrive and adapt to the changing workplace in the digital age of remote work and AI. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to have Praerit Garg as our guest. Praerit is the president of product and innovation at Smartsheet, where he's spearheading the integration of AI into their enterprise work management platform. Under his leadership, Smartsheet is revolutionizing how organizations handle data analysis, streamline workflows, and make informed decisions through AI-powered tools. If you're interested in how AI is transforming enterprise productivity and the future of AI-enhanced work, you are not going to want to miss this episode. We also want to send out a special thank you to Augmented AI Labs for sponsoring this episode. This is going to be a great show, and we're super excited to talk to Praerit today and learn more about how Smartsheet is shaping the future of work through AI. Let's get to it. All right, Praerit, how you doing? It's nice to have you on the show today. I appreciate you being on the Shift AI podcast.
Thank you, Buzz. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you. I want the audience to know a little bit about your background. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about your journey to kind of where you are in Smartsheet right now and how you got there.
Sure. Yeah. Grew up in India, did my undergraduate in computer science at one of the universities in India, and then came to the United States to do a master's, actually to do a PhD in computer science at Purdue. And then 2 years in, I convinced my advisor that I should actually go into the industry and get a real job. And my advisor was not particularly happy about it, but understood it. There's just so much happening in the technology industry. So I graduated to the master's rather than staying on for a PhD and joined Microsoft. That's how my professional career sort of started. Came to Seattle in 1995 to join Microsoft from the super windy and cold West Lafayette, where Purdue is in Indiana.
To the rainy Seattle.
Actually, a funny little story on that one is, so I came for interviews in January of 95, and it was minus 40 degrees with wind chill in West Lafayette, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so I came to Seattle, and it was in 60s and sunny in January, right? It's like one of those few days and I'm like, why am I in minus 40 degree wind chill? And so luckily, they made me an offer, and then I convinced my advisor. And
yeah, that's good incentive, isn't it? And so after Microsoft, talk a little bit about what led to kind of your role now, which you're the president of product and innovation. Is that right at Smartsheet?
That's right. That's right. So yeah, after Microsoft, I did a startup for 6 years. Then we sold that company, and I ended up at AWS. I was part of sort of ran a lot of their identity and infrastructure services. And then I thought I was going to retire and go maybe teach or something. And then I met Mark Mader, and Mark's the, like employee number 5 or something at Smartsheet, and then the CEO of the company. And Mark and I really hit it off, and I eventually ended up joining first as the CTO for the company in February 2019. And then my role as my partnership with Mark evolved over those years. My role has grown. It took over product, then took over many other functions like product marketing and digital marketing and BI. So anything that is my sort of tongue-in-cheek response is anything that is on the product side where I don't have to talk to real human beings, where our go-to-market team manages that with Max. We do all the digital magic of running the services, building the software, all of that.
Well, I was really excited to talk with you today. I mean, you've seen so much. I mean, from 1995 and then through the AWS years, and now from the early days at Smartsheet. I mean, so much has transpired during that time. And now you're going deep into AI as part of the work that you're doing with the product. And so, yeah, I've been dying to kind of hear your perspective on things. And so maybe talk to the audience just a little bit about what you guys are doing and how you're thinking about it from a product level, integrating Gen AI and large language models into what you're doing.
Oh, it's a gift. It's a gift, boss. It's amazing, right? Like I often say, 40 years in the making, right? Like the 1983 was when the original neural network paper was written, right? And so 40 years in the making, like some of the technology that fundamentally changes how we live and work, takes that kind of gestation to come to realization. And generative AI is one of those kinds of things. And so it's like one of the best gifts we could have gotten, right? I think we live in an incredible time, right? Where every decade has seen, even when I was basically in school, right? And then the high school, like every decade has seen transformative innovation, right? Personal computers to the internet, to mobile, to cloud, to now generative AI, right? Like we live in amazing times. And so in terms of, Smartsheet, right? So let me step back a little bit to give you. Smartsheet is is a platform for managing work, right? It's a work management system, like projects and programs and processes happening inside an organization, right? And our customers are the smallest of companies to the largest of largest, like Amazon's, like Uber, and like so we serve a very broad, wide spectrum of customers. So our target users are business users, right? Like project managers or managers of work, people. And so our users are not sophisticated technologists, right? They're not programmers. They are just business users trying to drive whatever work is happening, marketing campaigns, clinical trials, deploying of diagnostic equipment in hospitals, right? Like all of those are NASA JPL, right? The scientists were using Smartsheet to build them rover for Mars, right? Like so, they're business users. They're not programmers. So we're very focused on how do we make the software easier and easier to use, right? And this is where generative AI is like a complete gift to us, because while we have tried very hard to make the software as easy to use as possible, there are always elements of the experience which is not trivial, right? Which has what I call high cognitive load. Some examples in our product are like writing formulas, right? Like people don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, like trying to write formulas. Like business users don't wake up trying to do that. Some of us do, but not an average business user's thing. So writing formulas in the sheet to compute the budget or compute risk on the project, right? Those kinds of things requires high cognitive load. And so one of the things we did was we used generative AI to create an experience where you can, in natural language, ask the question. And it's like, oh, I'm trying to compute this thing. And it generates the formula for you. It's powerful. And we've seen our support cost related for formulas dropped 20% because we made that capability available. Same thing with average business users aren't data scientists. They don't go thinking about, oh, how do I analyze data? They have questions about their data all the time. Like people who are managing work, like what projects are at risk? Which projects are over budget, right? What tasks haven't gotten completed, right? And I mean, those are real questions they have. And if they're managing hundreds of projects, right, across the globe, and they have all this information in Smartsheet, it can be daunting to then sort of do the analysis and figure out the dashboard widget that you want to put on your dashboard to track that. So we added this capability using AI. We call it Analyze Data, where you can ask your data question, like simply by asking them in natural language, you say, which projects are at risk or which projects are over budget? And it will generate the chart for you, right? And literally generates a chart and you can actually get that answer. So, so we're very much, how do we use the capability which transforms the business user experience and makes some of the things that are otherwise hard to do, require many hours of cognitive work, like how do we simplify that? And that's been our approach to leveraging this amazing gift of technology innovation.
What's the response that you're getting from customers? Are people pretty excited? I mean, the 20% reduction is amazing, but I mean, what's the kind of visceral responses you're getting from people?
Incredible. Like I'll tell you, one customer of ours, Colliers Houston, they started using the capability, and they're a brokerage firm and they have 90 brokers. They all need this view of, okay, what commissions am I going to get? What invoices are getting processed? So the Smartsheet sort of person there created a solution using Smartsheet where every broker now is getting this custom view where they used the formula generator to generate these super complex formulas that create these custom dashboards for each of these brokers, right? It's incredible, right? Like what benefits they're getting. We launched in September, we made our AI capabilities available to all our customers. And we've seen literally a 40% bump in adoption of our AI capabilities.
I bet you the formulas are getting a lot more complex.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, usually, they had to go in the community asking people like,
yeah, of course. Yeah.
or call into support, right? Like now they can actually do it on their own. And it's such an enabler.
Before we go further with the interview, I want to tell you about one of our podcast sponsors, Augmented AI Labs, and how they're transforming businesses through intelligent AI solutions. Augmented AI Labs specializes in helping organizations unlock their potential with Gen AI, starting with your most valuable asset, your business knowledge. Their comprehensive process begins by identifying critical workflow challenges and knowledge needs, then building custom solutions that make your company's expertise instantly accessible. The Augmented AI Labs team combines fine-tuning and retrieval methods to ensure your AI solutions truly understand your business context. They thoroughly test and validate each solution, ensuring it delivers measurable value before creating a detailed technical blueprint for deployment. The real beauty of partnering with Augmented AI Labs is that they don't just stop at strategy. They build, deploy, and manage these solutions for you, continuously improving your knowledge systems while you focus on what you do best. If you're ready to transform how your organization leverages AI and knowledge, visit augmentedAIlabs.com and click on the Contact Us button. That's augmentedAIlabs.com. Now back to the episode. Yeah, it's a game changer. And it's amazing. These large language models are so good at writing code that when you ask it natural language questions and it spins up, Python or SQL in the background, it's amazing.
And that's exactly what we did with the analyze data capability. Right? We don't actually send the customer data. What we send is essentially a prompt to the large language model, and what comes back is a SQL query that we run against the customer's data to generate the charge that answers their question.
Yeah, it's fascinating. One of the things when I talk to customers, risk is always on top of their mind, security, privacy. How do you guys handle that? How do you think about that in the context of all the tasks and workloads that you guys are managing?
Yeah, like security is a very big deal, right? Like we are a multi-tenant environment. We have 85% of the largest organizations in the world using Smartsheet. So protection of their data is a very big deal. So we are very thoughtful about, it starts with what models you're going to use, right? Like you only want to use models that are not going to use prompt information to train the models, right? So that sort of starts right there. Is that models don't train on the actual prompt and any augmentation you do, right? So that's sort of the first place of that. Some of it is solved by the technology itself, right? Like you never really send the information, you send tokens that are essentially numeric tokens. So some of it is the technology already is designed. It's a statistical model based on tokens. So we get some of the benefits from there in terms of protecting the data. Then we have to be super thoughtful about how we architect the system, right? So like, for example, I gave you that example of analyze data, right? We're not sending customers data and getting the answer. We are essentially crafting a prompt, right? So that what we get back is a SQL query that we can run against the customer's data in our service environment and then generate the graph for the customer, right? Or the metric for the customer. And so you have to be very thoughtful about, so we might send some schema information that is tokenized, but then once you get the response back, you actually do the processing and the service and Smartsheet service.
So you feel pretty good, like when you talk to customers and they have those kind of concerns. I mean, you feel like, you guys have handled it, but there's also mechanisms for making sure that their stuff is safe.
Absolutely. And part of it is transparency, right? So, I often say, a lot of, our users are business users and, they typically have IT organizations or security organizations that behind. So the business users themselves may not actually care, right? But their IT team, their security team cares. So part of it is making enough information available, the transparency of the information is like, hey, here's how we do it. So we are really transparent about here's what's happening in generate formula. Here's what's happening in analyze data. Here's how we are, right? And so being transparent as to what the process is, and they can assess it themselves and get comfortable with it. Because a lot of it is people just don't know how it works. It's like, it feels magic, right? And so I kind of equate it to in the 90s when the internet was just sort of, people would say, I would never transact on the internet, right?
Right.
Like,
That's right. I'm never giving my credit card to purchase anything. Yeah.
Imagine doing banking on the internet. Like,
Yes.
when was the last time you went to a bank now?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, definitely feelings change, but I think right now we're going through that again.
Yes. And every such disruptive innovation has that curve that you have to go through. So
what are some of the things that have kind of surprised you the most? Like keeping along this challenges conversation, as you guys develop this, what are the things that came up that were kind of surprising?
It's a very different, generative AI is based on statistical stochastic models, right? It's a non-deterministic system. So if you think about software programmers, right? We live in the world of writing algorithms where we know what the output is going to be, right? We write test cases to verify, right, that the output is going to be this output, right? And that's sort of your confidence building process for knowing your software is operating correctly. Now, suddenly you throw them this technology where, it's going to give it super non-deterministic responses.
Right.
Right. And so it's a whole new way of thinking about writing software and creating customer experiences, because it's a statistical system which will, depending on what the user's input is, it's going to generate a response. And what you're doing is, so it becomes a lot more iterative than you could have ever imagined, right? So when we started working on the thing, prompt engineering is a big part of that, right? Now, our business users are not prompt engineers. So they're going to ask the question that their brain sort of helps them sort of understand that.
Yeah. But in the back end, you guys are doing things.
Right. So we have to take their prompt and then augment that prompt so that we can give it to the system so we get a high efficacy answer.
Yeah.
And so we actually created the tech, and then we ran a very long beta cycle because we needed users to give us this feedback, whether they were getting, thumbs up and thumbs down, like, are they getting good responses? So building trust with the users, right? So that they are getting high quality answers, and that feedback loop is a very different way of building software, right? And those experiences for end users than we may have done traditionally. Like, you can't even run a user research with some prototypes and getting, because input is going to make all the difference.
Yeah, and the testing seems to be just so much different than what you guys used to do.
Yeah. So I think that's one of those fundamental things. It's like, it's not a stochastic system rather than a deterministic system.
I think the audience loves to hear use cases, and in particular, the way that your customers are using Smartsheet now that they have these capabilities. So what are some workflows that maybe not typical, but what are some of the stories that you're hearing about ways that they're taking advantage of this technology to use Smartsheet for their own work management purposes?
Yeah. So one example was the Collier brokers example I gave you, right? Another one is, so there's this lab equipment company, and they're using Smartsheet as well. And so they have these other systems where they incorporate the data. So one of their challenges is, so when they provide this lab equipment to sign it, often what happens is, like, they get thousands of such requests, right? And it's in the orders of tens of those tend to be bad, right? So now imagine as a human having to go through and figure out what bad. So what they did is they use our analyze data capability and our formulas capability. So we import data into Smartsheet using Smartsheet Data Shuttle capability. And then they wrote these formulas and analyze data to identify those few tens of 20, 30 of those bad requests. And so it dramatically reduces the effort involved in finding those bad requests and their processing.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, the needle in the haystack example with large language models is a great one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, before we dive deeper, I want to take a quick moment and tell you a little bit about one of our podcast partners. As a listener of this show, I know you're trying to stay on top of all things AI and tech, which is why you have to check out the amazing GeekWire podcast, produced by GeekWire and hosted by Todd Bishop. It's a treasure of insights featuring industry leaders and the latest tech trends that are shaping our world. It's the perfect companion podcast to Shift AI. GeekWire podcast is where technology meets curiosity and covers the world of technology, startups, and geek culture. Expand your tech horizons and join the conversation. Tune into the GeekWire podcast today, a perfect complement to our own discussions here. Don't miss out. Follow the GeekWire podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening app. Now back to the episode. That's fascinating. Another question I have for you, just given the fact that you have been doing this for a long time and all the way back to Microsoft, like who were some of the people in your life and mentors along the way? And now too, now within this new kind of revolution that we're going through that have impacted you and the work that you do. And then like also, how have you taken that and then mentored other people along the way to kind of build the next generation?
I'll tell you, I look to everybody around me as sort of a mentor, right? This may sound strange. Like my older daughter, she did her undergrad in business. And then while she was doing her undergrad, she started this clothing brand, right? Using Shopify. And then all the marketing is through Instagram and TikTok. So, in some ways, like she's one of the mentors, right? Because she's doing incredible things that I can learn from just watching her do that, right? So I've had mentors all my career, right? Like as far as I can remember, right? And Microsoft, the leader of the team that I was part of, and I remember Dave Thompson, who was a huge mentor. I still quote him often as a leadership mentor, right? Like how to be an approachable leader, how to humanize yourself, because, as your organizations grow, corporate structures sort of have hierarchies in them and people get caught up in the hierarchy. So how do you, flatten the organization? How do you actually become approachable and reachable? Things you learn what other leaders do. Charlie Bell and Amazon and AWS is another leader that I learned from. And so you're always learning. You're always like different people bring different experiences, different skills. And so there's always opportunity to pick up nuggets from them. We brought Max Long as our president of go-to-market. And I'm amazed at some of the things that he, is great at, like how he engages with the team and communicates. So I'm constantly learning from. So those are some examples I can give you of sort of, people who aren't formal mentors, but people that you pick up things from and you sort of mentor from.
Can we touch on the leadership side of things? It's really, really interesting that, given the roles that you've had, of course, you've had a lot of people reporting to you. I've been thinking a lot about that in the context of, how powerful these large language models are and how our value is going to change, in terms of what really makes us great in the workplace. And I'm seeing a lot of people who may have decided to be an individual contributor, want to get into management, want to manage people, want to exercise that human side of their management skills. And so can you provide some insights into what you've learned along the way? Because I think that particular skill, leadership, is going to be way more valuable in the future than it is than it is right now.
I agree. I think leadership is one. It's like, how do you describe it and how do you actually represent it? And yes, as work evolves, as societies evolve, now this technology is going to change how we live and work. And so, leadership is one of those things that will also have to evolve in that context. When I think about leadership, right, I think at the end of the day, leader's job is how do you align a band of human beings towards a mission. That's what the goal. And alignment is the key word there, right? How do you align a band of human beings? Everyone has a brain. Everybody comes with their own experiences, right? And so how do you go through that process of bringing that alignment, bringing that that they are aligned to kind of go pursue that particular mission, right? That's like day in and day out, that sort of becomes the job. And so what are the tools that are in your toolbox to continuously, constantly keep your teams aligned to the mission that you're pursuing?
Are there some things that you learned along the way about, you use the word humanize. So in a software company, for example, there's a lot of different personalities, lots of different egos. Like, what techniques have you used to be able to kind of make the process and this alignment with human beings more personal?
Yeah. So I'll share the story with you. So there's a book by Noah Harari called Sapiens.
Yeah, Sapiens. Yeah.
I often talk about the fact that I'm a student of human behavior. Right? So books like Sapiens really influenced me. In addition to leaders like Charlie and Dave Thompson, leadership books are great examples. There's another book I read, which was Leadership on the Line. I don't know if you heard or read of that book.
No, I haven't.
So Sapiens, one of the things I learned from Sapiens was this idea of human beings are kind of the only species on the planet, right, that can, on their own volition, right, band together to go pursue a mission.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. I mean, some species are biologically wired, but it's usually in the context of food, right? We are the only species. I mean, that's how we have gone and solved diseases. That's how we have landed rockets on Moon and on Mars, right? And so we're the only species that has that ability, right? So it's all about leadership, because it's humans who come up with that mission of how the world could be a better place and align other humans to that mission. And in some ways, like one of the reasons why I'm at Smartsheet was influenced by that book. Because, our mission at Smartsheet is managing work, right? Work is the missions of organizations, right? From nonprofits to for-profit organizations, they have a mission that they are pursuing, and we are that tool that essentially greases the wheels to go pursue that mission more effectively. And so it's sort of, our mission is to help all other missions, and so it's sort of very fundamental to what we do, and that's what sort of keeps me excited. When I think about what some of the tools I've learned in that process, one example is there are a couple of meetings we do in Smartsheet every week. I call them going to church meetings, right? Because religions are examples of large-scale human alignment. And so, we have one meeting, we call it weekly operations review, right? Several hundred people from my team, like engineers and engineering managers, and join that meeting every week, right? Because our mission is, we're a SaaS business, right? We're software as a service. Our customers depend on our service being available all the time, right? Every day, every hour, the service has to be available. And so that's that meeting that reminds us every week, service availability, performance, scale, right, is pretty fundamental to who we as an organization are, right? And so in this meeting, we look at our availability metrics and performance metrics. If we have had incidents, the team that had the incident goes through a 5 retrospective on that, and what their learnings are, what changes they're making to drive this learning culture in the organization. That how do we keep getting better at that, right? We have another meeting similarly, which we call the business review, right? Which is all around what customer problems are coming up. So our support team joins and shares support issues and escalations. And when we look at our roadmap, right, that's about, it's like, what innovation are we delivering? How are we solving customer problems and making our solution better for them? So those are two examples of, you have to continuously align, right? You have to create a culture where there's continuous alignment. And the weekly rhythms are very powerful tools in your toolbox to create that.
I love that idea of aligning humans in that way. And especially in the context of all these conversations that we've been having around agents. And I think there's a lot of people that are afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of the media scares around robots taking over the world. And this idea that work might not include as many humans is fearful for a lot of people. And so it's interesting to hear about a company where it's really in their interest to have people coming together to do tasks and to do jobs and go and solve problems together in light of all this agentic talk and conversations, and how we're going to have all these agents with us. So if you can get philosophical with me for a second, can you talk just a little bit about how you think about that?
Absolutely. I think fundamentally, technology exists to serve us, the humans on the planet, right? Like that's sort of, so we'll have agents, and yes, we'll probably have robots as well. But it doesn't take the human need to have a purpose, to have something to so hopefully, my hope, I'm an optimist in this story, right? Like my view is that humans will get more time to do thought, like apply thought and creativity as more of mundane stuff gets taken off our plates, and we'll spend more time actually doing things that we are uniquely capable of. And even if agents can also do creative work, that doesn't stop humans from doing their own unique creative work, right? So I actually think that even if the world has more agents than the number of humans, right? We've still got stuff because we'll come up with new missions, we'll come up with new things to go pursue. So
Well, I know that you're a fan of the show and you listen to the podcasts, and so you know that at the end I always ask the same question. So the question is this: I want you to think about the future of work, and this is perfect too because that's all you do at Smartsheet is think about the future of work. So think about the future of work. What would be 2 words to describe the future of work? You can elaborate, but what would be your 2 words?
I call it super bright.
Super bright. Okay, tell me more.
So those are the 2 words that come to mind, right? I think the innovation that is happening is the future of work will only get brighter, right? And let me describe what I mean by that. One example of that is if many of the things that humans today do that can be offloaded to agents, right? That means we get more time to apply thought, to apply creativity, to do things that, we are uniquely wired for, right? So that creates a opportunity, right? That makes work that much more delightful, right? That much more what I want to go do versus what I need to go do, right? So there's that part of it. I think the work's going to get more delightful, right? It'll have more thought time versus sort of mundane sort of, kind of thing. So I think there is that aspect of it. And I think the innovation is only accelerating. That's because I think of it as supercharging that notion that we'll get more and more time to do creative work, more and more time to do thought work, right? And so it's only getting supercharged, where the word super comes from. So I think it's super bright. We'll do many more things at incredible speed and scale.
Well, I love the optimism, and it's really exciting to hear what a company as large as Smartsheet is doing with Gen AI and kind of applying it in real time and the way that it's impacting customers. So I really appreciate you being on the show. I'm excited about what you guys are doing, and it's been a lot of fun talking with you. So thank you for being on the Shift AI podcast.
Thanks. Thank you for having me, Wes.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Such a pleasure to have Praerit Garg as our guest on today's episode. His insights into Smartsheet's AI transformation are fascinating. The work they're doing to enhance enterprise decision-making through AI-powered analysis and visualization tools shows us a glimpse of how workplace productivity is evolving. If you want to stay connected with Praerit and keep up with Smartsheet's exciting AI developments, you can find him on LinkedIn. For those interested in exploring how AI can transform their work management processes, definitely check out Smartsheet's latest AI features and innovations online. I continue to be amazed by the guests we've had on the show, and I'm excited about the ones joining us in the near future. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you for listening to this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the Shift AI podcast for more exciting interviews, and to the Augmented AI weekly newsletter for updates on how AI can help you scale your business. The Shift AI podcast is syndicated by GeekWire, and we are grateful to have the show sponsored by Augmented AI Labs. Our theme music was created by Dave Angel.